There is a break in the action on the Texas Senate floor right now following several late developments with Ken Paxton's impeachment trial. Hello, everybody. I'm Heather Hayes.
And I'm Steve Eager. So right now the senators are considering another defense motion to have the political case dismissed. The state rested a short time before that, and we never heard from the most anticipated witness of the trial, the woman who was expected to answer questions about an affair with Paxton. Both sides agreed that she would not take the stand, which would have been in the presence of Paxton's wife, Texas Senator Angela Paxton. We did hear from Ken Paxton's personal assistant about meetings between the now suspended Attorney General and real estate developer Nate Paul today. Sean Rabb here with the update on today's testimony. Sean.
Yeah, first let's talk about the motions being considered right now. Those motions that have been filed by the defense, they're asking for something known as a directed verdict. What that is a judge, after hearing testimony, makes a ruling that there's not been enough legally presented evidence that would lead a jury to reach a conclusion. So directed verdicts are not common. They do happen from time to time, but again, not common. Meantime, handful of other witnesses today, including Andrew Wicker, on the stand most of the day.
And at some point you mentioned that FBI had reached out to you and you make Ken Paxton aware of that. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Drew Wicker, Ken Paxton's personal assistant, testified about what appeared to be suspicious dealings between real estate developer Nate Paul and the Attorney General. Paxton and Paul had lunches together. Paul, he said, paid. Wicker described a handoff of a manila envelope. And when Wicker told Paxton he'd been approached by the FBI, Paxton asked why. The next day, First Assistant Brent Webster had a conversation with him.
Mr. Webster said that he understood that the FBI had reached out to me and that I should not respond.
Did he tell you why?
He said that I ran the risk of incriminating myself.
Wicker says when he spoke with Paxton again, Paxton told him he believed there was attorney-client privilege.
So he too wanted to prevent you from speaking to FBI?
It certainly seems that way, yes.
Wicker says the Attorney General's office offered an attorney for him. He opted to get his own. And Paxton presented him with promotion in October 2020 after he told him about the FBI, an offer he turned down, eventually resigning. But still received a monthly stipend from Paxton's campaign fund, which he ultimately donated back.
What made you return it?
I didn't put in the work, and I did not want any instance. I didn't want it to appear as though I might have any conflict of interest if anything like this ever came about.
Then there's the allegation that Nate Paul bribed Paxton by paying for home renovations. Wicker testified about overhearing a conversation at Paxton's home between the Attorney General and contractor Kevin Wood about countertops and kitchen cabinets with the $20,000 price tag. He said he became concerned when the contractor told him he'd have to speak with Nate about that. Wicker approached the Attorney General, worried there might be an inappropriate relationship with Nate Paul.
He stated that he appreciated me bringing his concern to him, and that he then assured me that that was in fact not the case.
Let's be clear. The guy that spent more time, and that's you, Drew, with General Paxton than anyone else during the time frame that we're here to talk about is absolutely not accusing General Paxton of doing anything wrong at all, are you?
I'm not accusing anybody of anything, no.
In cross-examination, Tony Busby showed Wicker pictures of the Paxton's kitchen in 2020 and now, suggesting no granite countertops, and records indicating Paxton himself made payment for the home renovations. Busby's questions clearly trying to cast doubt on suspicion about that and Wicker's other observations.
You don't have any actual knowledge that Nate Paul ever did anything for General Paxton other than buy a lunch, isn't that right?
That is correct.
All right, so now, if the defense, if they don't win on the directed verdict motions they're seeking tonight, then one of the motions that the Senate jurors will vote on tomorrow changes the rules, and here it is. If Ken Paxton is convicted, he would automatically be removed from, prevented, rather, from seeking public office again. That would be a motion they would vote on tomorrow.
All right, Sean, quick question. Should we take anything away from the mistress not testifying? Does that mean maybe somebody's case is weak and so they don't want her to test? I mean, can we take anything for sure away from it?
So I took a look at the rules of evidence in the state under Rule 804. unavailable to testify. There are a handful of different reasons why someone can be present but not available to testify, including perhaps the idea that maybe Laura Olson was going to take the stand and was going to plead the Fifth Amendment repeatedly. And rather than that happen, both sides agreed, okay, we will show her present but unavailable to testify because we're not going to get anything from her.
Right, and they were already on the clock several times today talking about that.
Sure.
All right, Sean, thanks.